the 6th episode of At the Base of the Baobab Tree. Today I sit down with Izzy Cenedese, and I'm just going to let you guys listen to one of Izzy's songs called Black and White. I hope that you enjoy.
I hate the scent of you. It keeps me up at night. I hate the fact you keep me warm without a flame, no light. I hate the sound of your voice as it disrupts my peace of mind. Sometimes I wish you never were, but you bring color to my eyes. My eyes, black and white, everything is black and white, and I wish that I never knew otherwise, 'cause I love something I should despise.
Izzy, how's it going?
It's going great. How are you?
Awesome, it's going well. It's been a long time since we've last chatted.
I know. It's so weird to think about that. Like years just fly by.
I know. So I think maybe we should start with just some of the things catching up a little bit since fine arts, and then I definitely want to get into your music. I have a few questions about some of the stuff that you've already put out, and then of course with your new stuff that you're working on. That's super exciting.
Yeah.
Maybe before we get into that, you could just do a little bit of a breakdown over what's happened since you graduated and some of the things that maybe you went through that are tangentially related to that music.
Yeah, totally. Okay. So yeah, since I graduated, like I think everyone has this experience at some point where you're like, oh, I don't know what I want to do with my life. Like, I don't know where I'm going. I have no idea what my career will be. So I had a little bit of a panic, and I told myself I'm going to take a gap year. And I still haven't gone to post-secondary. So it's been more than a gap year, but it's definitely been, yeah, exactly. It's been a fun experience for sure. So I don't know, I started like picking up odd jobs. I was working downtown in like a piercing tattoo shop. It was kind of fun, right on the Granville Strip. So I saw a lot of stuff and a lot of cool people. I don't know, that came in.
Were you living downtown as well when you were there, or
no?
No,
I was living in, I was like living in like the border, like Cloverdale, which is like the border of like Surrey and Langley. And I was going down, and I was also working at BC Place.
really?
And so like stuff was going really well. I was like really excited about this, I don't know, new life. And
were you in like the ticket booth thing? Was that kind of?
I was a host. So basically your job is to like stand in the aisle and you get to watch everything, and the Stones were coming. So I was really excited for that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, I know. I was so excited.
Why didn't I do that? That sounds.
I know, right? Such a cool job. But yeah, I was having a great time and like not worried about too much. Thinking about some different career paths I was thinking of going down. Nothing too serious though. And then pandemic hit, which everyone wasn't expecting, and that kind of hit. So I lost both of my jobs, and I ended up going on EI. And when I was on EI, I was just sitting at home, like I didn't know what to do. But I've always played music, right? So I was writing a bunch of songs, and then I ended up saving up money and buying a bunch of equipment, like a mic, interface, whatever, getting a DAW, and just messing around on my own. I don't know, trying to figure out how to produce. I did not know how to produce or anything. I had a bit of recording knowledge, but not much.
That's a steep hill, eh?
I know. Yeah. I was like, oh, well, here I am alone on my couch.
Why is this sound terrible?
Exactly.
Like the more you learn, the worse it sounds.
Exactly. Oh, that's exactly it. Yeah. So I don't know. I was trying to navigate that, but it was something to keep me busy, I guess. And yeah, from there, I ended up basically producing, recording, and writing a whole album in my little quarantine stint, which was a few months.
Wow.
So
Well, that
yeah,
was like May, June kind of time last
that
year.
was I'm gonna say mostly April and May. Yeah, April and May 2020. That's like when all that happened.
Okay.
Um, and then yeah, I was like sitting on a couple projects that I was excited about. And then I got sick of working at home, I mean, just being at home doing nothing except for some music stuff. I don't know. I find like staying at home and feeling useless. Like I don't know, I felt like I had nothing to do and I was like super on edge.
Yeah, I think that's probably a common feeling for a lot of people during
Yeah.
the pandemic. I think that the optimists were kind of like, oh, this will be great. I'll be able to work on all the stuff I didn't want to, which you totally can. But at the
Yeah,
same time, we forget that there's this dichotomy. If that's true, but it's also true that you're going to get super antsy and be like, I want to
totally.
do something.
Like I wasn't in school, I wasn't working. So I like literally had nothing to do. And since it was like the pandemic, like I couldn't go out and hang out with people, so there was literally nothing and it was just like a lot of time alone. So I ended up picking up a new job at a long-term care home, and I'm
Oh,
still
wow.
working there now, which was crazy. Yeah, I was working in a
That,
long-term care
that
home.
closer to home, like in,
Yeah, so I was living in Cloverdale and it was also in Cloverdale. It was like a 10-15 minute bike ride. So I was biking to and from work and it was like a super different experience for me. Much different environment than working in a tattoo shop and
yeah.
at a big, I don't know, like at BC Place
I
to a
wonder
long-term care home.
if maybe you could elaborate a little bit on some of your different experiences, because I found that like the one of the best ways to empathize is to work in different places or um, be with different people of very different backgrounds and different stories, and you learn a lot. So
Yeah.
I'm sure that going from the tattoo place and then working in the long care home, it would be a very different clientele, and you'd probably
Yeah.
learn a lot. So
It
you
was totally different. Yeah, it was like
want to talk about that.
yeah, no worries. Yeah, it was super sick. I really enjoy it actually. I've always loved people and meeting different kinds of people, and I'm the youngest person working there. I'm 19. So everyone else, most of them, like most of my coworkers have like kids, like have a family, and obviously the residents are all fairly old.
Yeah,
So I'm definitely the youngest there, and it's been yeah, super cool experience because like I guess also the way I look a little bit more alternative, I guess you could say. So a lot of the residents they haven't seen, yeah, they haven't seen many people like me. And it's really funny. Like I have my ears stretched a little bit. You probably can't see I'm wearing headphones, but lots of them are really confused by that. And so I always get people being like, how did you do that? It's just like different worlds, different generations.
wow.
Everyone's been super friendly. And yeah, basically my job, what like my job entails, it's like a COVID specific position.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm supposed to keep residents company, since they up until now, just very recently, they haven't been able to have many visitors or anything, not see many people. So
Starting
stuck
to remote
inside. Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, now it is.
it's really good.
But yeah, so my job was just kind of like keeping people company, allowing them to continue to experience social interaction with people that they don't see every day, right?
Yeah,
um
super
so I
important.
heard, yeah, I couldn't agree more. So I heard lots of interesting stories and about people. There's people who are over 100 years old in there,
Wow.
um who I've spoken to, and just like I don't know, just crazy, like
You learn
seeing
so much
me.
from people. Like it's so underrated. I think in our generation, sometimes people just they don't understand that just because there's differences in some of the ways of thinking, that it's like there's still so much value from
Oh
people
yeah,
who live in different time periods.
so important. And like my lots of my extended family is in Mexico. So I
Yeah.
haven't seen them in a long time. I do have my nona here, in North Van. I don't see them too often either, but like yeah, so being in a work environment where I was surrounded by all these people with like completely different lives, completely different generations than me, was super cool. And I've enjoyed it so much. Just having those conversations, right? Like people who've lived through world wars, who are like over a century old, and I'm not even 20 years old, and I'm just like just starting life almost. in comparison, it's been a really fruitful experience for sure.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of in high school. I don't know if you remember, but when we did we would go to the old folks place that was really close to the school and do music there.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would stay after and talk with them, and also now, like with my grandma where she lives, it's like a long-term, not like a fully long-term care, it's more independent, but
I know
like
what you mean, independent living. Yeah.
independent living place, and it's just ridiculous how much value you can get if you're just really open to listening, you know?
Yeah.
And just recognizing that you have your own worldview, which is probably not like completely wrong, but it's also not full. It's not like completely full yet, right? And we're young, we're learning a lot, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah, so it's super cool. So yeah, I picked up that job. So I felt more useful, I was doing stuff and I felt like this is cool. Like I'm able to be like a young voice, a young person in these people's lives who aren't able to see their grandchildren. So like a lot of them, especially some with like dementia or whatnot, would like think I was their like grandkid. So they'd be like, oh, grandson or like grandkid, like whatever. And they'd like hug me. So yeah, definitely super cool. But during that time, for a while I was working like starting 6:15, and then coming home around 2:30. And then I really wanted to get this music out. So yeah, I ended up putting out an album around then, while I was working there, which was completely, done by myself. I did it all by myself on my couch in those few months of quarantine where I did nothing.
It's amazing how that's possible now, right?
Oh yeah. I was thinking about that
sometimes that you can, it's like some of the best people too, like I don't know, like Conan and stuff. It's just like making it all by themselves. You're like,
it sounds impossible.
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
And relatively, like when you really think about it, inexpensive in the grand scheme of things. Like there's only a few things you need. I didn't have anything fancy. I didn't have like a MIDI keyboard, didn't even have a keyboard. I just had like a $20 guitar I got off of Craigslist. Baby Taylor guitar. Oh yeah.
Just being like a complete badass. You're like, yeah, I did this album for $6. Okay.
Yeah. No, and then I like had this podcasting kit. This isn't the mic I had. This is a newer mic, but fairly inexpensive stuff. And I had like nothing fancy, just like the bare minimum. So I was doing like percussion.
Logic or Pro Tools?
Logic, yeah. I use Logic
because it's just one thing and you're done.
Yeah, and they got during quarantine they put out like I think they did a 90-day free trial. Logic did that. Yeah, right at the beginning of quarantine.
Yeah, I got that too. I got that. Oh, yeah.
So I basically didn't have to even buy a DAW, and all my percussion was done like on my guitar wood, like just like hitting it. I don't know, super fun experience.
Yeah, that's super cool. And so, when did you release the album? You released it.
Oh my God, let's make sure I don't
botch it.
I don't botch it. Let's see. I'm just gonna double check really quick. I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah, exactly. So, sometime last year, I'm pretty sure. Sure it came out
last year and this year. I would have to say, if I had to guess. Yeah.
I just want to double check. I don't remember. Like, it was such a. I don't know that part of. I don't know if it's just me, but during COVID, I've had the worst sense of time ever.
No, that's not just you. Absolutely. Me as well.
I don't know what's going on.
It's like a week sometimes feels so long, and sometimes 6 months is like
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Okay, I'm just gonna double check. I'm pretty sure it was July, but I want to make sure that it was July.
I think was 100% July is what you
said? No. It was August. There we go. August 20th. Yeah. August is when I announced it, and then I dropped it, I think, properly on September 2nd. Yeah, there we go. Okay. September 2nd, exact date for
there you go.
For context. But yeah.
And it did pretty well, right? Like you were getting a lot of streams from what I saw.
Yeah, surprisingly. I mean, like which just goes to show like you don't need that much these days, which is super cool. If you just like dedicate yourself to making something, you can achieve that and it not be a complete a garbage project, surprisingly.
And it's cool because it's not now relegated to just a super, super small, well, it is still small, but not like the super small subset of people that are able to do it, right? Where there's
Yeah,
like more voices and more different perspectives, because not everyone that's producing it now is someone that was with a studio album or a
exactly.
record deal.
Yeah, totally. Or there's even some people who've been coming out with music that's blowing up who made it on GarageBand on their phone, like using their microphone on their iPhone as their microphone for vocals, and having that music doing really well. So yeah, that was like surprising. So I dropped that and I was like promoting it on my own. You know, I didn't have like money to spend on advertising or anything like
Yeah,
that. So
yeah, like
I made a bunch. Yeah, I know. No, I can't afford that. So I made a bunch of, I started posting on TikTok a lot. Actually, that's what helped me gain a lot of streams, gaining a fan base on there, promoting my music. And then I started being like, hey, like if I made stickers, I have these stickers that I was making that said like, it was like a hello, my name is sticker. Um, and it was like hello, my name is, and then just in the blank space I put like the Spotify code of one of my singles, and it was like really cryptic, and like there was like no name on it, and like it looked kind of mysterious. But I was like, if anyone would want these, I'll like ship them out. And then a bunch of people like messaged me from like New York, like LA, like Texas,
wow.
like all over the world. And so I started shipping these stickers out and running around my city, in Vancouver, and just like slapping them everywhere I could put them. I was putting them on like bus stop signs, like, I don't know, mailboxes, wherever I could stick them. And then from there, I started getting messages from people saying, oh, I saw this weird looking code on the bus stop and I scanned it and it sent me to your song. So I looked you up or whatever. And I like it. Like it sounds good. So that was super fun. And then I started seeing, I know it was crazy. And then I saw videos of people, because I put the Google Doc that I made, the design to print my sticker sheets in like the link in my bio on TikTok. So people who, I don't know, didn't want to go through the process of like me shipping them some, or I don't know, whatever reason, they were printing out my stickers from their home and putting them around their town. So I was seeing videos of people like in these small towns. Like it was just crazy, surreal, really weird experience. Super cool.
It's like one of those moments where you're like, wait, I might actually be able to do this.
Exactly.
Right?
Right. Just goes to show, like, I think one thing that became more apparent to me, especially, I've always been like on social media or whatever, but during the pandemic, not being able to see people in person, I don't know, it's been a cool tool to still try and feel that sense of connection, and then having that sense of connection with strangers who were like supporting me and trying to help me do something that I really wanted to do without even like personally knowing me. Just, I don't know, it was like such a feel good thing. I was like, dang, like there's like some pretty cool people out there who are
Yeah.
genuinely nice.
And genuinely resonate with the stories that you're telling too, which is
Exactly.
almost
Yeah,
even more important as an artist, right? You're like, this is actually something that means something to someone, which is
totally.
asking for.
So cool.
Do you have a favorite song or a favorite story out of your album? Because I have a couple of songs that I really like, but I want to hear like what yours
I
is.
don't know. Well, I don't know. Like there was a bunch. The cool thing about that album is like Black and White was written, I think I wrote that in grade 10. So what is that, 5 years ago? I think that would be 5 years ago for me. Which is weird.
Wow.
Um, that's 5 years ago. That's half a decade. But I wrote that one a long time ago. And then there was songs like Cuff Jeans, Coffee Breath, Gurk, that were all written within that 2 month span. So it's like this amalgamation, like a mishmash of older songs that I wrote years ago
Mhm.
and songs that were just uh, written like a month or a couple weeks before that album came out, which is kind of cool.
That is really cool.
But I don't know. For me, like they all tell their own. I'm very specific in my songwriting. I think you probably noticed, but like for me, I can
Well,
relate.
there's variants. It's not like
Yeah, no,
you have
you're right.
different styles.
Yeah,
I would say
I know
Black and
that's
White is not at all like, at least melodically, similar to something like Cuff Your Jeans. Like I don't know.
yeah.
right? So
I know what you mean. But like in all those songs, I can like any lyric, I can specifically date it, like relate it to an exact moment on what it was based off of, I guess,
mm.
which is a cool thing.
Yeah, some artists are like that. Murat, when I had him on the podcast, was saying the same thing.
Right?
Some people who, it's maybe more a hypothetical story instead of something like that's their actual, like, this is
Yeah, like
happened to me at this time.
palpable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're
Way
both.
more palpable. Yeah. But I don't know. I think it was a cool process because like I got to explore. I don't really have a genre at this point or like a very specific sound, which is cool. Like I did like I guess Cup Jeans is like the more like indie pop kind of song. And that came from me like playing indie chords and being like, why don't I write an indie pop song? And then I was really into like garage punk. So I wrote Girk. And then I was like, but I also like singer-songwriter stuff. So like Crosshatch. And then I don't
Yeah.
know, I got to explore all these different venues. So I think I like them all fairly equally, and I think I'm like close to them all fairly equally.
Yeah. That's super cool. I feel like genres are almost like less of a thing now too. Maybe there's
Yeah,
still a thing, but there's just so many cross genre
exactly.
things.
I always use like at this point, I think yeah, exactly what you were saying, but also there's less pressure for you to stick in one box musically. Like I always
Yeah.
use Taylor Swift as an example because she was the first song I ever downloaded on my iPod
Oh,
like in
really?
my entire life.
Love it.
And she went from like country to like country pop to like R&B pop and
So,
now more like indie pop.
like,
Yeah, like every album was like a slightly different genre, and that just goes to show like especially right now like people are less expectant of you to provide only one channel, I guess.
yeah. Yeah, it's super cool too because everyone is kind of an amalgamation of many parts, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's truly one thing, and people like to play these games of like their identity is all tied up in this one thing, but even it's never true. Like people are always all
No.
these different things, and I think if more people understood that, there'd be less like hatred for
Yeah.
people being like,
Oh
hey,
yeah.
we all have like some connections in this respect, even though there's differences here. And
Totally.
that's one thing I think why I think Crosshatch is one of the most interesting, at least.
Mm.
It is one of my favorite, but I think like the bigger thing is it's more one of the most interesting songs especially in that spoken word section at the end, like
Yeah.
the extended metaphor of the lines. I thought that was like super interesting. When I first heard that, I was like, okay, and then I listened to it again. I was like, this is interesting. I feel like I got to listen to this a few times to
Yeah.
try to let it sink in. But do you want to elaborate a little bit on
Yeah, totally.
people who
So
haven't?
that song, the cool thing about that one and why I really like that one is because most people will pick it up and listen to it as like a love song of sorts, like a connection between two different people. But I wrote it with the intention of it being a story of like an alternate reality, like a different reality where we existed, in which your present self could exist in the same time frame as your future self, like a decade or so older, and you could go to yourself in the future in a more stable place as a mentor. So yeah, that's like what Crosshatch is all about. It's all about like my present self being in a stressful time or like not being able to really have a grasp on current life, and just being able to walk right up to me in the future and see myself in a different light, grown up, and have that as like a place of comfort. So it was a really cool experience, like thinking about that and thinking about how to write in that. Like there's a line where it's like, suck me into the warmth of your organs, and I'll be dancing in your lungs till I'm not welcome. So it's just like, I don't know, like a safe space in a form that you could never really have because that's impossible. But
But you
yeah, and
can in like in the
mentally, right?
right, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's like the
Yeah.
beautiful thing about imagery and about creative, um, I guess, expression in general is just that you can take things that don't technically exist. I mean, a lot of things don't technically exist.
Yeah.
You get like super philosophical, it'd be like, oh, like gravity is just in your mind, like it existed before everything, but you don't know like that. It's like whatever.
Yeah.
But it's
No,
cool.
totally.
You can connect with
Yeah. And
and
then
the lyrics, like you do have really specific lyrics. I would say that's probably the most like um carryover kind of
yeah,
thread through all the songs is that there's very
definitely.
kind of unique lyrical devices, and I was always like, oh wow, that's so cool. Like I would never say something like that, but that's just super unique way to express that idea.
Yeah, I started thinking I'll just finish like talking about cross hatch and then I'll talk
Sure.
more on that. But yeah, like the line metaphor at the end of that in the spoken word part of cross hatch is like something that I've carried with me my whole life. I'm a very visual person. I like to interpret things that aren't palpable into something that I can like metastasize and like imagine visually. I don't know, it like helps me understand things. So yeah, when I was a kid, I'd always think of people that I encountered and came into my life as like lines. And then I just started thinking of my life and people's lives as lines. So like your life would be like a continuous line straight forward. And as you meet people, like they can intersect and you can stay intersected until you pull apart and become maybe more parallel. Like it just made total sense to me in my head. And then um when I was writing crosshatch, I'd like had the whole line thought, but like on a worldwide scale, and just could see like the earth just being a tangled knot of life. And it just, I don't know, it sounded really beautiful and cool to me. So I just started like talking.
And it quite literally is that in a
I
sense.
know, so weird.
Well, to just be like, even the person that's the most different from you in every way, it's like, hey, that's another human being. Like we have a really like a 99.9% commonality between.
Yeah, it's so freaky.
It's
And
crazy.
that whole, yeah, I always think about that. Like I'm always the type of person before when we were much closer to strangers on the street or strangers on a SkyTrain, like I'd sit on the bus. I always sit on the bus with like earbuds in, but never playing music so I can listen to people without them know. It's kind of sus, but like
No,
I don't
no,
know.
no. That's people watching. Everyone does that. It's all
Yeah.
good.
But I love to just, I don't know, I found it really amazing to be like centimeters away from a stranger and like them be on a phone call talking, I don't know, to their wife or like to their partner, blah blah blah, talking about something really personal, and you're just like there, you have no correlation to this person's life, but for like those brief 30 seconds you were like more intimate than the majority of the people they have in their life that would they would consider to be close to them. So I don't know. I was just thinking about all those things at once when writing crosshatch, and I think it came across. But yeah,
And I guess how much time that we waste to like where we're close to people and we're just like, oh, you're not my close friend, but at
yeah,
that time you're the closest person to that person
it's
physically in a
so
weird way.
scary, so weird, but like super cool. Yeah,
Wow.
and just
I'm just like, oh,
I know,
you
and
feel
just yeah,
it's
thinking about how you all, whether you're aware of it or not, you're all contributing to each other's quality of life. Like this person's job might directly be influencing your quality of life, and it probably is. I don't know. Just I could go down a hole of
no,
just talking about that. But yeah,
that's super important. I think um, just for very like tangible examples or something,
exactly.
service related job, when you have someone who's working at Starbucks or something, and you have two options, you can either be kind of quick and like, yeah, just go, or you can go out of your way and be like, how are you doing, like how's your day, and just talk with the person like they're a person.
Yeah.
So few people seem to do the second, at least
Hmm.
my experience, or I guess maybe not so few, but less people than I would like to see.
Yeah.
It
And
seems.
that's kind of something I've really taken into account and tried to make myself aware of. And it was a big switch in my life because so my family, the majority of my family is from Mexico. My mom's an immigrant. And whenever you're in Mexico, like there's a completely different social energy where if you're walking out, you're like going to get your bread from the market or your groceries. Everyone walking past you will say, "Hey, good morning." Like, "Hey, what's going on?" Not like to initiate a super long conversation, just acknowledge, "Hey, you're another human being here with me in this moment. And I just want to say hi to you and like make your day better." And I don't know, yeah, that switch in my life was when I took that energy from what it feels like to be in Mexico and kind of brought it here. And I'm always, yeah, whenever I'm walking down in the city, I'll be like, dude, your shoes are so cool. and just like seeing the reaction on these people's faces. You're not expecting someone to talk to you when you're minding your own business, right? Just like, but there's no better feeling, guarantee, like anyone I ask, like there's no better feeling of you minding your own business in your own bubble and someone like compliments you or is like, hey, like you're looking great today, or just like saying hello. I don't know, it's such a basic thing, but like it makes your day.
And you found that most people that you say that to are really receptive and
Oh
really
yeah.
so interesting, because it's probably a fear-based thing why people don't do that a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
it seems like you're right. Maybe less people than you would expect would be weirded out. Most people would be really like, "Oh, thanks."
I've never had like a, I don't know, it can be like really simple, just like hey, or just like nice shirt, nice pants, whatever. It doesn't have to be like super personal, but no one's ever been like upset or been like, oh, kind of weirded out, because it's, I don't know, such a simple phrase, and you can just see the impact, small or big, that it has on someone's just day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's really interesting what you say about the different social energy, because there's kind of a stereotype of Canadians are polite or whatever. But and actually, I think there's maybe a bit of that social energy in like away from the big cities, like in those small towns and
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
Lately, like people are always like wave and like, "Hey, how's it going?"
Yeah.
But I think in cities, maybe in general too, there's just a little less openness to talk to other people
Oh
sometimes.
yeah. Seems like everyone's like, I always think of it as like the horses in the horse races where they have like the side blinders so they can't see
Binder, yeah.
the, yeah, right? It kind of feels like that. Like someone's on their way to
Tumbling.
work, you're just like, you have a destination. I'm gonna go get my smoothie. Like, you know what I mean? You're not paying attention to everything else. So you're listening to music as you're walking down the street. But
I'll go get my low fructose vegan
yeah.
smoothie. Ah,
That's
exactly.
it. That's it.
That's the only objective.
Yeah. But no, it's super cool. So yeah, I don't know. That's that. And then I guess I'll hop back to my lyricism and
Probably a
the
good idea. Yeah,
specifics
that's
in that.
something I'd definitely be interested in hearing about.
Yeah. But I don't know. There's nothing, when I hear music for the first time, obviously like as a consumer, when someone listens to a song for the first time, you're not aware of what's going to happen. You can't really predict much. You're like listening as it's happening. For me, whenever I listen to the song, the first things that I take notice of are the words. I don't know why. That's just like what my brain picks up first. And whenever someone says something that I've never heard before or that comes off as jarring, I'm always like, whoa, like, oh, that was so cool. Like, that's what sticks out to me first. So I've always been a
That's
fan of,
mostly with. Do you read a lot too, or is that mostly just with
yeah.
books?
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
you find that with
Yeah.
books as well.
I
Yeah,
love my books.
I have to nerd out. I definitely I noticed that in lyrics, but a lot of times in books you just read a line, you read it like 5 times.
Yeah. You're
Yeah.
like, whoa, where did that come from? I have no idea. But yeah, so I don't know. I think it's the coolest thing because like the English language, every word's been spoken once. It's like, come on. Like every word in the dictionary has been spoken
Make
once,
up a new word.
multiple hundreds of times. Yeah, exactly. But it's like the coolest thing ever when you are able to string these words that have been in people's mouths for like decades and find a new way to arrange them to have something that no one said before or no one's used to describe a certain feeling before.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I've had such a fun time like being very visceral, sometimes a little bit gross in like descriptions. I like using like human anatomy to describe human emotion a lot of the time, but it's been like really fun for me to like write something, and like the first couple times I'm like, why did I write that? Like I'm talking about like brain guts, like that's disgusting, but then like I end up really liking it, and then I end up just like putting it out in a song. So I don't know.
That's super interesting. Yeah. I think it's totally like a string of all these different things. And then
Hmm.
it's just the metaphor that you said of like the strings, even with
Yeah,
lyrics.
exactly,
You're like,
right.
oh, if I take all these different ideas, like everyone knows about sunshine and everyone knows about whatever this other thing, but when we combine those together, it's like, oh, that's been
Exactly.
done before.
Exactly. Or
Yeah.
there's sometimes where I listen to a song and someone will describe, I don't know, something in a way that I've never heard before. And I'm like, whoa, like that's like the most accurate. I don't know. Just sometimes it just like hits home. I'm like, you worded something so perfectly. And I'm always trying to like word what I'm trying to convey as best as I can, I guess.
Yeah. That's really interesting that you say that. Like, like I've been studying neuroscience for the past few years, so I'm very
Cool.
in the science of things, and I think science is very useful and very good for
Mhm.
explaining things. But I think a lot of people that study science are blind to, like they're good at saying, hey, yeah, science, it can explain all this stuff, and it really can if you're looking at like a big picture, like trying to solve like, global starvation or something. Like, yeah, we should
Yeah,
use
yeah.
science and not just your emotions to solve a problem like that. But
Totally.
like, it's there's so much that can't be said just through like what things are. You have to almost say like, you have to like describe the shadow of something. You can't describe
Mhm.
the object itself, and that's where like art comes in.
Yeah, that's why there's so many love songs, right? No one knows what there's
Yeah,
no proper description of love, and people like to call it the fourth dimension, but that's why there's so much art that just purely focuses on love, because
yeah,
you can't assign that to like a physical thing. Like you just can't do that, right?
yeah, and also like with art, I maybe want to take this a little bit away from where we've been going and
Yeah.
discuss like what defines like quality in art, because I was
Oof.
reading the book Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. I don't know if you ever read that one,
No.
but it's a really interesting book, and he talks a lot about how there's two types of kind of underlying reasonings for things. There's the classical reasoning and there's the romantic reasoning. The classical one is something that's classically high quality would be a car that drives because it doesn't break down, and so it's high quality because
Yeah.
you can very easily see like this is high quality because it doesn't blow up, and this is low quality because then the romantic definition of quality is different, and he kind of argues that it can't be subjective or objective. It has to be this weird like third thing, because
Yeah.
there's some things that you might find high quality and I might not. There's some things everyone might or something, but there's just, I don't know,
It's so I know exactly what you're
there
talking
is
about.
something.
Yeah.
It's not just your subjective opinion. There's certain things are deep and they're just good quality and they're meaningful because they explain something useful,
Yeah.
right?
Definitely. Like that I don't know. This is kind of a funny example, but there was a while where I was really obsessed with like deep diving really obscure Spotify playlists and like trying to find like super tiny musicians, and I fell in love with this band called Sales and Co, and they have an EP called like Baby Teeth, and now it's so weird because that EP has less streams than my music does. Like I think some of their songs are like, on Spotify when you haven't even gotten 1,000 streams, like it's like under 1,000.
Yeah, yeah,
Like a lot of their music is that, and I can't find them anywhere. They have like no social media, but that album was like on repeat like for almost a whole year of my life. Like I'm in love with that little EP so much. And just like when I found out that now at this point like I have more streams than that EP, and like no one I've ever spoken to has heard that EP, just blows my mind, because it was such a like an integral part of my life, and just like such a I just love that music so much, and I thought it would be much more popular listened to, and now there's like no trace of them at all. It just made me think like, whoa, this means so much to me, and I don't know if anyone else listens to this. I don't even know.
it's almost like it's a secondary growth. Like it's the something that influenced you, and then your songs, in a way, had to, like, they wouldn't have been exactly the same if
Totally.
you hadn't heard that. They wouldn't have been the same if you hadn't done. I would have had to do everything exactly as you did it. But
Yeah.
in a way, it's like it's meaningful. Some things like are like that though, where I'm like, maybe something was super high quality that nobody knew about that influenced like Shakespeare, and then that became like this
I
big
always think about
thing.
that.
It's like, you know, there's I can't remember who said it, but there's a really famous quote where it's like, nothing is unduly remembered, but many
Hmm.
are unduly forgotten.
Yeah.
I was like, that's probably true. Like everything that's
Bars.
really like important in some sense, and like
Yeah.
everything that isn't remembered, maybe there was like the best thing ever that is like completely forgotten, and it's like,
It's literally crazy. It's like crazy. So yeah, and that's been a cool thing too, because like with my music, yeah, a bunch of those songs were inspired directly from like certain artists that I fell in love with that weren't necessarily like, oh, massive like pop stars,
hmm,
but meant a lot to me personally. And from there, like I've gotten messages from people talking about my music being super genuine, and just saying like really kind things that just blow my mind. And I always forget that like public can listen to my music, and I forget that it goes on like algorithmic playlists. And so like when people reach out to me, I'm like, oh, Like people, oh, you can listen to this. Oh yeah,
Like
like
that initial response to like, how do you know about my music? And you're like, oh wait, I put it out there. Oh, okay, it's all good.
exactly. But it's so cool. It's like the coolest thing ever.
Wow, that's so cool. Okay, so your second album, this is an album that you're working on right now?
As of right now, it's just singles. I do have enough to make an album, but I'm focusing on 2 songs right now.
Sweet, sweet. And
It's like a heavy focus.
you recorded them already?
Yes. So one's been in progress for a long time. It's called Toronto. I think it's almost been a year since I've written it and had the demo done. And it's been a process of me like trying to find people to be able to help me to like make it as high energy as possible and just like kick it up to that next level. Um, and that one's more like a pop punk, like alternative,
Okay.
like super fun, like upbeat kind of song, which I'm really, really excited about. And the other one doesn't even have a title yet. But what happened with this song is it was one of my last days in my family's home before I moved out to Vancouver. And I was gonna be one of my last times being able to play like an actual piano because like I don't have an actual piano. It's like in my parents' house.
It costs like $8 trillion. Yes.
Yeah, like sorry.
Okay.
But I was like, oh, I'm just gonna sit down and I don't know, record something. And it was like this is like in the span of 10 minutes. Like it wasn't like a big thing. I was just messing around with some notes and I was like, oh, this sounds pretty. So I just like sat my phone down and I recorded like a 60-second TikTok of like 2 verses and this little piano melody. And it like started getting a lot of attention. And people were like, oh, when are you going to finish this? When are you going to write more to this? And like, I was like, oh, come on. Like, I just like did this for this. Like this song's intention is to be like a minute long. Like, what are you saying more to this? And then it was months later that I ended up writing a chorus and I like stitched those videos together. So it was like the little part I wrote months ago stitched with the new chorus. And that got like 20,000 likes and like a lot more people saw it than liked it. And then people were just bombarding me being like, when is this gonna come out? Blah, 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 blah. Like, and I was like, oh, I didn't expect anyone to actually care.
Like a
So
responsibility now to
yeah,
put it out there or something.
I was like, oh, okay, now I have to finish it like properly. Um, so yeah, after that started like kind of gaining a lot of attention. I started writing it more and I wrote it all and its initial purpose was gonna be to be like a Midwest emo type of song. I don't know, like the front bottoms kind of thing. Um, that's what I was feeling like it was destined to be. And then I don't know, I've always really liked the a song called Trusty and Shrew by Damien Rice. And it's the coolest song to listen to on like really nice headphones
Yeah,
or
I know
like
this song.
speakers
So good.
because right, it just starts with acoustic guitar and then a full orchestra like swings in, like it just gets so wide
It's like
and
amalgamation of solo acoustic with orchestral pieces is so
it's crazy.
nobody does it like that.
It's crazy. So that song has been one of my favorites forever. Like I hold it so close to my heart. And I've always in the back of my head always thought like, oh, I wish I could make a song like this. I wish I could make a song like this. And I was sitting there, and I was thinking after listening to my demo of the song, I was like, what if I made this into that type of song? So I sat there and I only have like MIDI on my computer and I did like a full MIDI orchestra. And I was like, I'm in love with how this sounds now. This is definitely what it has to be.
Surprising how good you can get, like, you can get it just with,
Yeah.
like, I mean, it's not the same, but it's like,
It
it's
got my idea across,
yeah,
right? Like,
exactly.
yeah. And so I sent that to a couple of buddies and we were all feeling the same way. We were thinking, yeah, this could be pretty cool. And I sent it to Andrew Spindor, who we both know, who I know from high school. He taught recording lessons at Fine Arts, which I was a part of. And we've stayed in touch and he's been a great help throughout. But I sent that to him and he called me right away. He was like, Izzy. And I was like, hello. He was like, we have to do this song like now. Like this has got to happen now. So I booked the studio to get it recorded, just like bass, drum kit, guitar, vocals, piano, just like the basic instruments. And now the process starting now is going to be getting like a real orchestra sound to be on that, which is a whole process in of itself. But yeah,
That'll be worth it though. Like
it's
it's
gonna be
gonna sound
so
so
sick,
nice with the real orchestra sound. But
so cool.
yeah,
Yeah,
Andrew will make it killer for
yeah,
sure.
it's gonna be so good. So yeah, that's kind of like what I've been
Producing that,
working on.
or are you gonna produce and he's just gonna master it? And
Oh, I'm gonna definitely try and work on my producer chops before I fully produce my own music since my album. Like I love my album, but it's definitely got that quality of like this was made in my bedroom, like which I
yeah,
love.
well, it's like when
Um,
Bruno Major released his debut,
exactly, right?
and everyone was like, "How'd you get it to sound so lo-fi?" And he's like, "I literally tried to make it sound as high quality as I possibly could." Got it.
But yeah, exactly. So I've gotten different people to help me on that aspect, like producing and mixing and whatever. Obviously I can't master, so other people do the mastering, but yeah, so these two songs are going to be a much
Not mastered by
better
yourself.
quality.
Like, I don't know. Like I didn't do the mastering. Like I just finished my sister's song and sent it to Andrew to master it.
Mhm.
I'm like, is it not possible for us to do the mastering? Like, do you need special equipment to do it? Like, I
It's
don't
like
really know.
really like you need like a really good ear. It's
Okay.
like hard exactly what you're looking for, and I don't trust myself doing
Yeah.
that, so I'm just
Yeah.
like I'll let you deal with that aspect.
Yeah. Totally. No, I figured that the ear was definitely a part of it, but I was like, is there also like some equipment that like I
It's
need to
I
get?
mean like there's nothing I can't achieve what someone in like $1 million studio whose full-time job is mastering, you know what I mean?
If
And
you
I'm just
could,
like
then you probably would be
if
like,
I could I would do it, but I'm just so scared and confused as to what exactly it is. So I'm just like, yeah, you take that.
I'm working on this for years, and you have a high quality studio. I think it's probably a good call.
I think it's safe in your hands. I think you know what you're doing.
It's,
But yeah, that's like kind of it. It's been like definitely different living outside of my parents' home and like working full time and like finding time to do everything else.
when did you move out? Did you just move out recently, or
I moved out like November 28th, 2020. So
okay.
what that's like it's like about half a year ish.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
yeah, it's been super fun. I'm in like East Vancouver now, and still working in Cloverdale because I don't know why I like to do that to myself. But
Well,
fun, yeah.
you were commuting to Vancouver before, so now you just wanted to flip it. Yeah.
Just vice versa, yeah. Like even out, you
Yeah,
know.
you're like, I gotta get the other side of the view. Driving that way in the morning and this way in the evening. Yeah.
uh, so terrible. Um,
That's so
but yeah,
funny.
that's what life is now. Trying to get more projects done. While
Yeah.
trying to pay rent. So
That's kind of sick though. I mean, like it's obviously stressful when you're trying to like not like starve or something. And you're like, I need to like, make money, and I'm trying to be a musician, which is already not like super societally like rewarded. It's not like,
yeah.
hey, if you're in Sweden, maybe it would be nice, but
Oh wow.
but
Imagine that.
but yeah, and you're trying to do that all by yourself. But it's kind of sick too, in that you're at the time when it's like you're building it, right?
Oh yeah.
One day, you'll be in the position where you can, record in like nicer studios and stuff. But right now, you're building it. It's
It's starting, yeah, now.
like
And
exciting.
I'm super lucky because like so I moved into this house with 5 other people. So it's 6 of us in total living in this house. And 4 of those 5 people are in a band called Book Club. So they're all very talented musicians. And then my other roommate's like a freelance like photographer, video producer, like making her own income artistically, which is super cool. And then all together, plus several other musical people, we're part of a collective called Astoria Tracks. So basically that gives us the opportunity to like help each other art because we're all in the same position, right? We're like passionate about music, like making music, but also not like incredibly financially stable to be able to afford all these things, right? So we help each other out. So I've like
But
done
it's not like the
vocals.
beginning story of every band ever.
Yeah, literally, right? So I've done vocals for like Jaden Bricker, and then I brought my roommates Jack and Zach to do drums and bass at the studio the other day. So we're all able to help each other out, which is like super beneficial to me at this time. Um,
That's
yeah, super cool.
that's super exciting. Super exciting. So you moved out in November. You're living there now, and you're working out in Cloverdale.
Yeah.
You're trying to make your album. You're not album, but your some of your songs happen.
Yeah.
That's pretty exciting, though.
I know, it's kind
How
of
do you
fun.
feel overall, like about things? Like, does it feel like things are going pretty well, or are you feeling kind of stressed? Or
Pretty well, but also stress. I've been because recently Bonnie Henry released a statement in which would affect my job because it has a lot to do with my job. So my hours are being changed,
like
and then
reducing the need for you, kind of thing?
yeah, kind of like that. And so all my hours are going to be changed, which gives me less time in the day, really, especially with my long commute. So I've been thinking recently about like picking up a new job closer to home, which would be smarter.
Okay.
And being able to like, yeah, have more time to just do stuff, get stuff done. So that's kind of the position I'm at now, where I'm like, okay, it's time to like let go of something, so I can like keep pushing forward, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there kind of comes a time to when you're working on building something that you have to realize that yes, I got to balance this. I have to make things happen financially, but if it's taking up too much time, then it's never gonna like
Yeah,
um, or not never, but it's going to negatively impact the chances of like what I'm actually trying to make happen working.
totally.
So, yeah, maybe reducing the commute time and stuff like that
Yeah.
would be a
And
good.
and also like it's not like that's a career path that I've intended to follow. You know, it'd be different if I wanted to end up in the medical or healthcare field and I wanted that to be my career. Um it was always for me like a job that I can do now, that I can enjoy now, but I don't want it to be a long term position, right? So at some point it's bound to happen, right? Have to move on, find something that maybe I'm more interested in pursuing for the rest of my life, just going from there, you know?
Yeah, that's super cool. So
Yeah.
through your music, what kind of stories and what kind of messages are you like hoping to be able to explore or to kind of express or pass on to other people? Do you have like specific ones,
Totally.
or just like you're
I
interested
think,
in exploring everything and kind of?
yeah, I don't know. I think I've had a pretty interesting life experience because I've been raised Catholic. I was in Catholic school up until grade 10 when I went to a public fine arts school, which was a very big shift in my life.
Was
Um,
it a good call?
yeah, it was so different. But yeah, I was raised Catholic my whole life. Catholic elementary school, two Catholic high schools. My whole family's Catholic. Um, and I yeah, I'm queer. So I grew up in that environment having two things that I was told should have conflict within each other and should not be able to mix with each other. So I was like definitely in a pretty difficult headspace and struggling to straighten myself out and kind of figure out like who I am and what's going on. It was a pretty difficult time for me, and that's when I kind of started using art as an outlet, in a sense. And then I ended up going to fine art school, and in fine arts, as you know, there's like people of all cultural backgrounds, different religions. Like I met people who were Buddhist and people who were Christian and queer, which I'd never heard of before. People who were agnostic, like all different kinds of people that I was never exposed to in my life because I was living in like a tighter kept bubble, I found. But I've also never been like hateful towards people in religion either. Like that's never been my experience. Like I had a relatively pretty positive experience growing up Catholic, and like a cool thing about that whole experience is like I know that religion very well. Like I've gotten baptized, communion, I've had my confirmation, like I've gotten a bunch of the sacraments and I've learned a lot. I won a religion award because of like how invested I was in learning.
A religion award?
Yeah, I won a religion award
I'm the
in grade
most
7.
religious.
Yeah. Oh, I would. But it's cool now because now I'm in a position where I understand uh this life that I'm living, and I understand Catholicism really well, and the religious aspect of my life, and I understand like myself now very well. So I've had a cool experience of like, I don't even know how to explain it, but a lot of people come to me to talk to me about things that they're struggling with or confused about or interested in, because they know that I've gotten to live through thing like two, it almost seems like two different sides of life that most people assume can't mix, like can't really like exist in the same place. But
Yeah,
I've done that. Like I've lived um through all of that, and I
a
respect
religion specifically that's like not receptive to somebody who's queer.
completely,
So
right?
it's like, can you be both? Or even like the age old
Totally.
science religion debate, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's like, why can't they both
Why can't this?
connect in
Yeah,
some sort of way? Yeah.
totally. So like I've encountered so many people, like adults, like parents of people that I grew up with, who have conversations with me because I never fight fire with fire. Like I think the only way to have a proper conversation is to like, the problem right now is like a lot of people, whatever the situation is, say like I've only eaten blueberries my whole life and you're just like a diehard like strawberry fan, and like if we were having a conversation and I never listened to you and I just didn't care, like you'd get nowhere. So a bunch of people have been able to come with me, and since I've had like a
Yeah.
I'm like fairly peaceful and like cool with everything, and like my family's all Catholic, like I know what's up, like I'm not just gonna like scream. I've been able to have like these really cool open conversations with people from a generation that just like felt like they couldn't understand or like be comfortable with people like me, and I've been able to, I don't know, like
Yeah.
um sit at the same table as them and have a good conversation, and it's been the same experience at my long-term care home, you know what I mean, being like a different type of person lots of these people are used to seeing. So that's come across a lot of my music, like a lot of my storytelling, I guess.
Like black and white seems very
Yeah,
like that as well.
yeah, like focus on those feelings and my experience growing up like that, and being able to have an outlet
Have
to
you found
speak
that
about them.
those discourse, like those sit down conversations, have been like fairly fruitful in you, or does it
I
really?
love No, I love them. Like that's the thing, like I definitely had a period in my life where I was very turned off of religion, and I was very like, I was afraid, I guess you could say, because of my personal experience, and I was assuming that the personal experience I had with certain people confronting me, like being kind of rude to me or not very nice to me because of who I was and how it conflicted with their personal beliefs, then I
Mhm.
was like, it kind of turned me off. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I feel comfortable with this, but like then meeting a bunch of other people, realizing like, I don't know, it depends person to person, like anything. Like it doesn't matter
Yeah.
your religion or anything. It's just like who you are as a person. And I realized, and I met a bunch of people who were like religious and queer, like I said before. So now, yeah, I'm able to have these conversations with people without any abrasiveness from either side, because we're both able to be really open with each other. And then yeah, because like for me the only way I was able to open up is when I kind of got out of that bubble and I was put in a fine arts public school. And I was like super in shock at first, cuz like I hadn't met people of like many other religions ever in my life up to that point, and it was just like a massive exposure, and then me just being like, oh, you're human too, and look at us go. We can talk and like get along and be just fine. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's been positive for me, and then I learn a bunch of new stuff, and vice versa, we like learn from each other. So I've never had like I've never had an experience, and I always make it very, very known to people when I meet them. Like, if you ever want to ask me a question about anything, you're ever curious about anything, or something confuses you, never be afraid to ask me. Just be upfront with me, because like, yeah, I'll be super honest and open. Yeah.
That's a really, really cool, and I think um, uncommon perspective right now, at least with
Yeah.
teams, at least in like the States and
Hmm.
I guess Canada to an extent as well.
Yeah. Because it's really easy. Like, say if I were, I don't know, if I were a person who, if I was still Catholic, or still very Catholic, like I don't even know what my
Yeah,
faith or
would you
religion
say like
status is
agnostic
now.
maybe right now or something?
I don't, yeah, I really don't know. I can like
Are you
elaborate on that.
are you a spiritual person? Would
I
you say?
same spiritual, like I took world culture and world religions course at fine arts, and I think that taught me, at the like, I studied like Rastafari, Quakerism, Buddhism, Taoism, like all kinds of religions all over the world. And then when I was studying everything, I realized at the end of the day, like, no matter what religion, or what religion someone isn't a part of, it still comes down to you learning how to be a good person, and taking care of each other, right? Like, no, nobody's god or gods can physically make you do something good, right? Like,
Yeah,
it still comes down to you as a human person, and being like, I'm gonna be a good person. So I think that's kind of like where I stand now, I guess.
yeah. There's a lot of commonalities, and I think like from the evolutionary perspective too. If you look,
Totally.
you see that like the tricky thing with religion is that it's like it's not something you can just like. I think what people want to do is they just want to say like religion,
That's it.
all religions are bad and it doesn't like it's terrible, but you can't
No.
push them off like that. It doesn't work because they have such high utility. Like they're very, very useful and almost necessary for like um not every person, but like on a societal level, it's necessary to have
Totally.
certain religions in order to encourage people to
Totally.
try to be good.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And that's like what I was saying. It depends, like, person to person. Like, people who wear plaid shirts, some of them are great people, some of them aren't so great people. Like, it's
Yeah.
like, you can't
Most of
just
them
sit there
suck.
and be like,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. You can't just sit there and be like,
Answer
oh,
that, yeah.
people who are religious, you just have to stop. Like, you can't do that, because it's
Yeah,
not beneficial. Like, it's with, you can't just, yeah, pick
yeah.
apart, categorize. It just doesn't end up making very much
Yeah.
sense. You know what I mean?
Categorizations are like the same thing. It's super important to the extent of like, hey, like I can only speak from like studying biology.
Yeah.
There are noticeable differences between certain things.
Yeah.
Those are useful when like if I'm a doctor, I'm not just gonna say like, oh, like male female sex differences, they don't exist because I don't want them to. It's like no, they
Yeah.
do. But you also study like I've studied endocrinology, and it's like, well, there's a lot of on the tails of both. There's a lot of overlap, and there's a lot of things that are not easily categorizable, even though 99%
Exactly.
are. And you should still use those categories. It's like they're not absolute, and I think
Yeah.
sometimes religion is tricky because it's like people make absolute claims, or they're like, if you do that, you're eternal damnation, and
That's
that's a
it.
big thing. You can't really get around that sometimes. But sitting
No.
down and talking with people is maybe the best way to edge those barriers and carve off the edges and just say, you think that's true, but we don't know the facts, and let's just try to be nice to
Yeah.
each other until we all die and
Exactly.
figure out
Right.
what the truth is.
Yeah. Then we'll figure it out from there. But yeah, that's been a cool thing. Like, I have one song called Getting Better, which is a single. It's not on my album, but that one's definitely like pretty specific to my own experience growing up. Um, and I don't know, I've had a lot of people like give me feedback on that song, and like how that related to their own experience. So I don't know, it's been cool. And there's not many people like me that I see represented in music, which has also been pretty cool.
In what respects do you think are you specific?
Cause like, I guess I'm like, I'm a mixed race person who identifies as non-binary, and like presents themselves more masculine in certain aspects, and like,
Categories that you tend to like associate with people that also tend to are not like you in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
personality wise.
Yeah. I can't like, there's not many people that like how you can look up to certain artists because like you see themselves, you see yourself in them to an extent,
Totally.
like, oh, I relate to you like so much, like we have such a similar experience like in life and similar background. Like there's not many people in the music industry where I can say that, you know what I mean? Like I haven't really had that experience. So it's been kind of interesting for me to be that figure in some people's perception, right? Because they'll be like, whoa, you're the only person I've seen who kind of like looks like me or has a similar background to me in music or something like that. And I'm like, oh, that's really weird to think about that.
Does that also tie back to the aforementioned idea of your future self being like a part of you? Because you talked about how
I think so. I think
in your songs, and it seems like maybe it's like you in 10 years. Like, it's the same thing that McConaughey said or whatever. He's
yeah.
like, what was it? He's like, my hero is me in 10 years or whatever. Like, you're like, that's kind of almost seems to be kind of what you're saying.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess that's how like everything developed though. We've come a long way as a society, as like Earth and as humans, like we
As an Earth society.
people used to fight for segregation and stuff like that. Like we've come a long way, and I bet people in that time were probably finding it hard to have these big well-known figures that they could look up to because it was just like a whole different world, right? So like we're constantly developing. So I think that's definitely been something weird to think about for me, where I was like, whoa, like I don't really see myself very often in a bunch of the artists I look up to and respect. But like now, when I started making music, actually there was a person called Claude who got signed to Phoebe Bridgers' label, the first person signed to Phoebe Bridgers' label ever, who was like literally me. And actually they released a song called Cuff Your Jeans after I released Cuff Jeans, and like we're very similar, but we're around the same age too. So like we both kind of like popped up around the same time. And I was just thinking, that's so weird. Like this is the only person I can really think of that's similar to me, and it's kind of freaky.
It's like a doppelganger situation.
I was like freaked
That's really
out.
scary.
I know everyone
Like,
was
it's the
messaging
same
me.
name of the song. Like,
It's
what?
just my song.
It's the exact same song. You're like, what? You look at a picture, it's just you wearing like a different outfit. You're like, oh my, I need to get out of here right now.
But seriously, it was like weird. And yeah, I was thinking about it, and I was thinking, whoa, this is like this new generation of people, and this is like real time progression that I'm able to see in front of my very eyes, and like being a part of that is like just incredible, super cool to see. Yeah, weird too.
Yeah, that's crazy. So you mentioned Phoebe Bridgers, and I know that you like Phoebe Bridgers. Who are kind of the artists that you really look up to as like musical inspirations? Not necessarily like you mentioned that there's not a lot of people that would be
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean.
like musical inspirations.
Oh, okay. Well, I mentioned before that Taylor Swift was the first song. White Horse by Taylor Swift was the first song I ever downloaded. First song ever. First album I ever got was Fearless by Taylor Swift. So Taylor Swift has definitely been like a she's
Okay.
she's been super pivotal in my attraction to music and wanting to learn guitar and wanting to write songs. Was definitely literally just her influence on me.
When did you start playing guitar?
I think I got a guitar when I was 12, 13. One of those Fender starter kits,
Yeah.
And I started playing that, and
Out of the Walmart one. Those are
literally the go-tos.
the go-to.
I started playing that, and then I was like, I have really small hands. Like I have tiny, tiny hands. And I got really frustrated. It was a full-size guitar, and I was like, I put it down, and I didn't play it for I want to say about a year. I didn't play it for like about a year, and then around the middle of grade 9 to the end, and then going into grade 10 in the summer, is when I picked it back up and I got my prized possession, which is a 3/4 guitar, and it fit my hands a lot better. So
Actually, it's a nice size. It doesn't
yeah,
like,
no,
especially that small hands, it makes sense.
yeah, it worked way better, and I was able to play things that I found really difficult before. So it kind of gave me that drive to like, I don't know, keep learning. So I sat that summer going into grade 10 was when I really sat down and I like properly learned guitar, which was super fun.
Yeah, I remember when you came to fine arts that you were like, you got a lot better like the first year. Like, you weren't bad at guitar, but like I just remember like pretty quickly, like after you came, I was like, I knew that you played guitar, and
Yeah.
later I saw you playing. I think it was when you were in grade 11 because I was in grade 12,
Yeah.
and you did this really funky kind of like strange time signature thing, and I was like, wow, that's so cool. Such a unique, yeah, unique sound. It's
Yeah,
so fun though because you can be an expert in one style, or you can just kind of experiment with like a kind of
totally.
a smattering of all these different things.
I mean, yeah, the funny thing about that was when I was in like the instrument I auditioned for to get into Langley Fine Arts was bass. I was like, I'm coming in to play bass. And the choir director at the time, well, it was Johnny Michael who was doing my audition. He was like, "Do you sing?" And I was like, not really." He's like, "Are you sure you can't sing?" He's like, "Can you sing this note?" And I was like, and he's like, "Okay, you better join choir." And I wasn't a singer at all. Like I definitely had that.
Really?
I don't no, not at all. And I had that like
Did you
what
write
you
songs and write like songs
uh
with vocals?
kind of like a little bit, but I didn't have a good voice at all. And I had the, like the indie voice that they like to make fun of, which is like the glottal stopping, like the Grace
Yeah,
Vanderwall kind of Halsey thing.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
was definitely doing a lot of that. Like I didn't have proper vocal technique, like not a strong voice at all. And
It's a great
those
sound, but if you do it without the right technique, it can damage your voice a little. Yeah,
totally. That whole, those 3 years was probably like the biggest progression musically for me. Like I got much better at guitar, like actually learned how to sing, um, and wrote a bunch of songs. Yeah. Super
great.
weird.
Things like that can happen where someone just says you should join choir, and you end up like being a vocalist.
Yeah, that's like my main instrument now, which is
Yeah.
super funny. But I ended up with like a kind of interesting vocal quality, I guess, because my early preteen to early teenage years were a bunch of pop punk and like My Chemical Romance, and I really loved
Oh
punk,
yeah,
and it's a really interesting
I can hear
vocal
that
technique.
in your
Yeah, right?
yeah, for
It's
sure.
like a really interesting vocal technique of where like you have to really pressurize your abdomen, and it's about like launching things really clean, really straight, a little bit of grit on the end, just
Mhm.
very strong, lots of breath control, and that's all I was listening to for like a good period of time. And being in like a oral environment, which is like a different type of training, I don't know, like coming out of that, like I was able to apply these two different worlds, where I have a pretty stable voice now and it's like healthy singing, but I don't know, I learned how to like metal scream properly, so I'm able to implement like these grits and like rasps now without it just blowing out my vocal cords
Yeah,
entirely.
you're not gonna get like vocal nodes and have to
No, oh no,
do something anymore, which could
gnarly.
happen if you didn't have like a good training base.
Yeah, that would be scary.
Yeah, I knew a couple people. Well, I know at least one person personally who had that happen. And
Me too.
ah, I,
Yeah.
it's like a nightmare situation. Like I don't.
Oh, yeah.
It's like,
I can't even. Yeah, I don't even want to think about that. That's freaky.
yeah, 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 definitely.
But
Damn,
yeah,
that's crazy.
so
Well,
weird.
um, do you have anything specific that you want to mention about music, or should we move on to something non-related?
I don't know. I don't know if you wanted. I thought you said at the beginning that you wanted to ask specific questions about certain songs.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I kind of already touched on Crosshatch.
Crosshatch, yeah.
I I know you mentioned a little bit about it, but I'd like you to go more into depth on Black and White if you can. Like,
Black and White. Oh
Like,
my gosh.
I don't know if that story seems like it's really like personal and deep. So I don't know.
You're getting in your emo hours, like hashtag deep stuff.
Yeah, but it
That
definitely resonates as like something that is like a very honest story. It
yeah,
felt very personal. So I don't know if you're interested in.
yeah. Well, I wrote that in grade 10, and I think it's a pretty common experience that everyone's experience of like getting feelings and like actually like not necessarily falling in love, but like becoming really attracted to somebody who is not in on the know that you're attracted to them, and also in a relationship. So that's what that song's about. It's a friend I had who was dating somebody at the time, who was not really a great bloke, who was just not a good person in general overall. And and I tend to be like, I'm not very like when I like somebody, I'm like really awkward about it, so I never really say anything. I don't say anything, so I'm just kind of like minding my own business, like being in my feels, like writing about that experience. But yeah, that's like about me having like such a strong attraction to somebody who was in a relationship that was like really detrimental to them in the end. And just being like so frustrated because like you want to say something, but like if you say something you could lose your friend, and they might think like, oh, that's weird that you're like having feelings for me, like we're just buddies, you know what I mean? So it was just like a frustrating, hard experience to like watch somebody I cared about be in something that was causing them a lot of harm and not being able to do anything about it except just like watch and think, basically.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I think that it's it's one of those things too where the beauty of being able to write a song about something is like there's no way to express it just by like saying it, you know?
No, yeah.
Um,
That song was really fun to do, especially when I wrote it, because like if you look at the I don't know, it's like very quiet all throughout up until that bridge where it kind of like kicks it up a notch, and that bridge is like definitely like very frustrated sounding, and it's just like kind of exhausted. Like I was really, yeah, it's like the pinnacle of that story, I guess, is that bridge. Where so it's cool that the actual sound of the song represents and reflects that emotion pretty well.
yeah. And that emotion definitely came through. But another thing that came through with that song that was very interesting is like the again with the lyrics and the metaphor, like that one was just that was like kind of unfair what you did with that. That was like with the flipping it. So you took the idea of like things being black and white and super simple, dichotomistic. There's two options, dualism, whatever, and
Yeah.
the idea of technicolor, like there's so much diversity and all these different ideas. But instead of saying like, oh, we should all try to be more happy and diverse, and you were like, I want it to be like that, but I know that it's black and white. So
Yeah, it was like,
like yeah,
yeah,
that's
it was
some heavy
it's
idea.
hard. Yeah, it's, I don't know, it's like, I don't know, I've always loved color. Like there's a million songs using color as like metaphors and ways to describe things. There's a song by my favorite band actually called, they're Louis Del Mar, and they have a song called Painting Masterpiece, which is about like if everyone's life was a canvas, like what would you do with it to like create this beautiful work of art? And it uses the idea of God being like, okay, no, the canvas would be like a blank apartment in this song as they're explaining it. And then it gets to the bridge where it's like, and many years from now the landlord would kick us out, he'll cover all our sins, he'll paint it white again. So it's like God would be like your landlord, I guess, and as you pass away, this apartment is a blank canvas for someone else to move in and for them to paint it. And it's like it's one
That's
of my favorite songs. It's a killer track.
what's that song?
um Painting, it's by Louis Del Mar. I think you'd really like it, it's so
Yeah,
good.
I'm
But
checking
yeah,
it out as soon as we finish this.
the whole thing has to do with that, the concept of color, but like they push it to a point where it's not, one lyric isn't related to that. Like it's one thing for you to be singing a song with like fairly stereotypical lyrics and then toss in like a little color metaphor, but it's another thing to like have the whole song revolve around that idea. So yeah, Black and White was like interesting, and also interesting because like, yeah, it's all talking about black and white, and then you realize like it is black and white now. Oh, I don't even know. Like, because it's like you've painted me already, and I should have worn your shades loud and bright, but I sit back in black and white, right? Like, just like
It's like
you
a
had that.
prophecy kind of idea. Like,
Yeah, well, it was like what that was relating to was like me, because I ended up, I think, actually saying something to my friend and being like, yo, like this relationship isn't like good. Like, sorry, like from my genuine, honest perspective, and because I care about you, I can tell that this isn't like healthy. And from there, like, yeah, that relation, our friendship got kind of strained because, you know, lots of people don't like for you to intrude on their
yeah,
uh relationships.
honesty is not always
From
very
there we've become friends again, so it's all good, but like at that point, yeah, it was
happy
like,
ending, guys. It's okay.
yeah, don't worry, we're on good terms. But at that point, yeah, it was basically we had this really good friendship, and I ended up ruining it because of saying something, and now I'm just kind of sitting here just like being like, well, that was my try at trying to help out a little bit, and miserably failing. um but
That's
yeah,
music's a good friend when you're in a situation
yeah,
like that. I don't know how you would deal with those kind of situations if you
yeah,
were
no,
a musician.
it was also fun to write because like it's almost like an anti-chorus in that song, because most songs will have like a verse that's fairly light, and then your chorus will be like the punch up. But in that song, it's like more active during the verse and just like dropping out in the chorus, and it being like very sparse in the chorus.
It's a floating feel in the chorus.
Yeah,
That's like
totally,
an extra like out of body experience, like you're
totally, that's
getting
exactly
it
what I
and then you
wanted.
go back in kind of thing.
Yeah, which was like fun, super fun. And I wrote that when I was, what, I was 15, probably 15, 16. Yeah, weird.
Wow, that's a long time. It's interesting what you said earlier about the sitting down and listening to other people. Just one thing that I thought about afterwards when you were saying that.
Yeah,
Um, and just trying to like understand other sides too, especially coming from like a Catholic background and
mm-hmm.
um, a Mexican background, maybe more of a traditional background in overall,
Yeah,
um, and that like they're like being able to kind of recognize value in things that aren't necessarily valuable for you, but they're valuable
mm,
for other people. It
totally.
reminded me of, I don't know if you know who Daryl Davis is, but
No.
he's a he's a guy who used to be like a boogie woogie kind of musician, and
Yeah,
he was always super interested with why he's this black guy from the States, and he's really interested with um, why some people just hated him based off the color of his skin for no other reason. It didn't really make sense,
yeah.
which it shouldn't really make sense to anyone. Um, but what he did, it was such a kind of weird story. But he went from playing in a bar one time, and this guy came up and he sat down and talked with him, and the guy ended up being a KKK member, and
Whoa.
so he actually befriended this guy, and he got to know members of the KKK, and he would go talk with them and sit down and listen to them and have like this civil discourse with them, and he ended up causing over 400 people to leave the Klan. It's pretty
That's
crazy.
crazy.
But it's just like a
Yeah.
testament to like how like some of the parallels that how that can work really really well. Like I think that people never really change their mind if you yell at them, but they will
No.
potentially change their mind if you sit down and listen to them and say, you know, I think you're wrong, and I'm going to listen to you, let you say whatever you think, but here's why and stuff. And I think that's
Yeah.
I
No,
don't
totally. And even just like exposure. Like
yes, that
I've been so lucky to many people I grew up with, I'm the only person they know in their lives as like basically adults as being a queer person. So I've not had the responsibility, but like had like, I think it's lucky that I've had the opportunity to like be this one real person that someone knows, and it not just like a fake, like someone on the media, right? Like it's totally different. Like
Yeah.
that's the one thing that got me to finally be able to properly understand people and like talk to people is when when I was in a public school full of different kinds of people and I could physically interact with people who were different from me.
Yeah, that was such like I always think about that. Like just going to Langley Fine Arts was such a positive and just beneficial experience in that the exposure. I think also just being in Vancouver, it's fairly like multicultural,
Diverse, yeah.
diverse, which is really great. But especially that school did have like a lot of, you know, like people from different countries, different backgrounds, different sexual orientations,
Yeah.
like whatever. And I think that I was listening to a neuroscientist talking about this a few days ago, and it seems like it's so much harder to be um, like discriminatory against people if you've had exposure to like all these different.
Totally.
Most people who've had a lot of exposure are pretty like balanced and saying like they don't like hate people based off of some like belief
Yeah.
that person has. I mean,
Which
maybe
is fair. Like it's that's the one thing. Like it was really hard. You know, I hated gay people when I was in grade 7, 8. Like I hated them. Like genuinely, I can say
especially
that.
if you had the fear,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and like I hated them because like that's what I was taught and that's what I was told, and it was something that I was not familiar with, that I only saw sometimes on media, because like a lot of the media I was consuming was like I don't know, like fairly restricted in that sense. But I had such a tunnel vision perception of these kinds of people, right? And it wasn't until I started like like meeting people who I had attributed to these stereotypes that I started learning, oh, that's literally not true. And I'm just seeing this from one perspective. And it's so easy to sit in your like bubble of comfort and read things online and read stereotypes about different kinds of people that you may not know in person, and just develop a really strong opinion, right? From
Yeah,
what you see and from what you're being shown. But like you can never really learn about someone or any kind of person or anything until you go out and seek it and surround yourself by people who are different than you, right? um
yeah,
but it's been, yeah, just super cool. And also sharing that experience with people I did go to Catholic school with. Like there's a girl who recently reached, like I'm not really in contact with many of the people I went to my first high schools with. Like there's a few of my friends that I stayed close friends with, but the majority of people like I don't stay in touch with. I don't like follow on social media. But one of my friends from my grade 9 Catholic high school reached out to me like pretty recently after I dropped music, and was like, yo, Izzy, like I really like what you're doing right now. Your music is beautiful, and it's cool to see like how much we've changed and how much our realities have changed just by opening ourselves up to the world and different people that we're surrounded by. Right? Like yeah, it's been crazy to see my just perception of reality shift so much.
mm,
Just by being open to change and open to meeting new people, right? Like
yeah. Yeah.
crazy.
I think being open is huge, and you just once you realize how malleable your perception is, you just become a lot less arrogant with I know everything and like
Oh my
you're
gosh.
wrong because you're like you hear someone who says something that you get the emotional response of like or you're angry or whatever, and that's fine, like that's just
Yeah.
your body. But then you
Instinct.
sit
Yeah.
down, you're like, okay, like I'm just gonna listen to this person and see like listen to them talk, and a lot of times when you do that you realize, oh, it's not even what I thought, because there's so many stereotypes that are like perpetrated by different media sources, and it's so easy to
Yeah.
think of people groups as more similar to other people group to the how do you say it? Everyone in this people group is more similar, and everyone in this group is more similar. But like, there's far more differences between individuals than there are between groups.
Totally. Yeah. No.
Far more.
Yeah. Super, super interesting. And like, yeah, I don't know, just like a really cool thing to live through and realize, and always fun having those conversations with people. Yeah, I was actually talking to someone the other day because of this, I don't know, this silly thing that was like blowing up on social media. But this one person was like, okay, this is like such a hard subject to talk about because like it's very misinterpreted, but I had to study it, so like I'm like fairly familiar with it, obviously not an expert, but Satanism, okay? It's like it's a very polarizing, even saying that word, very very polarizing, and obviously me growing up Catholic, I was like
Negative stigma.
so scared, like so scary. And when I was taking my religions course, just out of curiosity, I was like, what if I push myself out of my comfort zone, like as far as I can possibly go out of my comfort zone, and try and learn something about something that I've never actually researched because I'm terrified of it. So I did, and I learned a lot of what that philosophy means to people, and it's basically just the practice of like keeping yourself in check, making sure you're good so you're able to take care of the people around you. It's very like some of the rules have to do with consent, just like I don't know, it's like it's nothing as scary as what the term is usually associated with.
It's
Anyways,
probably just used to be more evocative than anything.
exactly, right?
Yeah.
So this person that I knew was kind of like going on a rant of like Satanism and saying it was all these things that I knew from like having to study it that it wasn't. And I just kind of reached out and was like, hey, I was wondering where you got your information or your sources from. And then she was like, oh, it's just like, you know, what we all know and like what we all hear. And I was like, I really encourage you to like check out what people who identify as Satanists
Mhm.
believe in, or like, or really delving into that topic, because, you know, I was the same way. It's still like kind of scary for me in some senses, but like it wasn't until I actually dove in and was like, where did this come from? Like, what is this? What do these people practice or like follow, that I was pushed outside of my comfort zone and had to learn something new. So it's weird because I was having that conversation last night.
There's also the historical. I think part of the sometimes the confusion with those types of things is there's sometimes historical narratives that aren't necessarily completely in line with what the modern day narrative is.
Totally,
Like the history
totally.
of Satanism is can get pretty dark if you look
Oh
into
yeah,
it. And
totally.
so if you're associating it with that, and like it or not, names have a lot of power.
Oh yeah,
Say that, and it's like,
immediately, right?
yeah, all the cards fall.
Yeah,
And I mean, I haven't done any research into modern day Satanism, but I definitely know that like historically, it would make sense why people would
be
not
like,
be super
yeah,
down
makes
for like
total sense. Like makes
sacrifice and
total
stuff.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not until you like push yourself. Yeah, like it was so scary for me to like be like, I'm gonna research this because I actually have no idea what any of this is,
Hmm.
because I've just been so scared and turned off of it my whole life. And it wasn't until, yeah, I pushed myself past my level of comfort. um I pushed myself past that line and I was like, oh wait, like this is
Yeah.
like nowadays this is like not bad at
Definitely.
all when I'm really thinking about it.
I think the one thing that I have, and that's not with Satanism in particular, but I think that there is a limit, a logical limit to how accepting we can be. Like you can't be accepting
Oh
of
yeah,
if we're accepting of everything, we're like, oh, being a pedophile's chill, like you can just like
yeah,
do
yeah,
whatever you want. It's like
totally.
that can get pretty dangerous. So I think that sometimes when people fight against these things, it's a protectionist instinct where they're saying like, oh, I really just want to, you know, protect the world. And to be fair, like if you, I just finished reading a book called Factfulness, and it
Cool.
kind of elucidates some of the social trends over the past couple hundred years in the world of like decreasing rates of poverty, actually decreasing rates of suicide, which I thought they were increasing, but they're actually decreasing substantially.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
crazy.
COVID is like a blip,
Yeah.
but um, but yeah, it's crazy. And you look at things like that and you say, oh, okay, so what we've been doing has worked to an extent, so we can't just be like destroy everything, right?
That's it. Yeah.
But you're right. You can't. You also can't say this thing is aversive to me. I don't understand it. Therefore, it's wrong without doing the research because that's
Yeah.
equally
And
dangerous.
that's the thing. Like when like that's what I'm saying. Like you can do the research and still not agree. Like it was just in my instance where I did the research and realized that everything I had perceived so far was wrong. So like it's completely possible for you to be like, oh, I'm not too sure about this, do the research and not agree. Like that's like
Yeah.
totally fair. And that's also what we also have to understand is like everyone on this planet right now was born in different generations, different backgrounds, different families. Like I will never expect like there's a bunch of people older than me who like have things about me and I will never, I don't know, expect, since it was such a hard thing for me to like have to grow and learn and I was really young. Like it's hard for you to expect like these older generations to completely drop everything they've been raised in and known their entire lives and be like, okay, fine, like this new stuff or whatever's going on now. Like, but we should get to a point where we can be like, this is my personal opinion, but even though that has conflict with yours, I'm not gonna like
Yeah.
yell at you or fight you over it. Like that's a different thing, right?
Or trying to force your thing on someone else, that can be,
Totally.
that's when it gets dangerous, because like you mentioned with the older generation thing, it might even not be in their best interest to change. It might even be better for them to just live out the rest of their lives with their
Totally.
paradigms, and that people living now can use their paradigms. But I think part of the problem with fighting the civil discourse too, and like the conversation, like ending it or just saying this is the correct thing and everything else is wrong, is that it's really not using critical thinking skills.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally.
Pushing them to the side and saying like, because there are some things that might be true, but you definitely don't want every single person in society to like do that. Like
Yeah. Oh
for you, you
yeah.
might be like, oh, I think that like, marriage is terrible and people shouldn't get married. But it's like, if nobody does ever, then like things are not going to get better. You just know that for a fact. Or if you're like, I don't think anyone should have children, it's like, well, then there'll be no more people in a while.
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly. Yeah,
don't
like
don't be too absolutist and don't be too reductionist about things. I think in general, it's a good
yeah,
idea.
keeping lines open, keeping doors open and yeah, trying to stay less abrasive because it's easy to get abrasive when you're very passionate about something. But yeah, I've had incredible experiences with people who seem like they don't have much in common with me or don't really align interest wise with me. But some of the best conversations I've had with people are with people who are so polarizing to me or seem to be very polarizing to me, polarizing because like when we've had an open dialogue, I don't know, there's just like nothing cooler. I think there's honestly nothing cooler.
Yeah, and social media can kind of make it scary because you can see someone and be like, oh, I think this person's so like this. But then you talk with them and you're like, wait.
But that's the thing, you have to do it. Like it's so easy right now on social media to it's really easy to be abrasive on social media.
Yeah.
So easy in comparison to in person because like you can sit in your bed and just like it can be like 2 a.m. and you can be like, I don't know, butt hurt over something that happened in your day and you can just like all caps like go on a rant and just flame someone,
Yeah.
like absolutely flame someone. Um
Or just like
uh
repost something that you really haven't done the research in. Just
Totally.
boom.
It's
And it's like,
so easy to like start little fires on social media
I'm
and
not
most
convinced it's better overall. Like, I think it's good that we can communicate through social media, but I think that like the benefits of social media and the drawbacks are kind of like equal. If
they even each other out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
totally.
I uninstalled Instagram from my phone, so I still have it. Like, but I don't want to be like going onto it in my spare moments, right? I
Yeah.
just want to go onto it when I need to for a particular reason.
Hmm. Totally. And that's what I was trying to say. Like, I don't know, there's no it's one thing to see and ingest and talk about things on social media, and it's another thing to like have a human conversation with somebody, right, like you're never going to get that same experience unless you like reach out to somebody and you're like, hey, I'm curious about these things, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
um I've
no
never
place
learned more.
for social, like physical contact.
Literally, right? Like literally, like if you look, if someone was curious about like religion, you could Google it to find like the structure and like the history and like the fact, but you're not going to get like the human inflection of someone's experience in that, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like you're not going to get the same response as if you reached out to someone who was Buddhist because you were interested in Buddhism and you spoke to them. Then they could get like the human inflection that you can't get from just looking up something on social media, you know what I mean?
totally, totally.
So
Yeah, it's a very it's a great thing, but it's like anything, you know, in a certain degree of balance with it is good, I think.
totally.
Live your life also, and not just live it
Yeah.
on Instagram. Oh my goodness, I only have this many followers. I'm not winning.
Scrambled eggs.
Yeah, yeah. What is it? Avocado toast again? It's like the classic thing. I just have one last question that
Oh
I've been
yeah.
asking all my guests, people, whatever,
Okay, there we go.
at the end. And I don't know, I feel like we kind of spent a lot of the podcast talking about this a little bit, but I'm gonna ask it anyways, and maybe
Cool.
something else you can add. So it's just that based off your experiences so far in life, if you could tell one story or spread one message that will get through all the noise and all of the kind of obscurity of social media and other things and reach everyone like in
Ooh.
the core, what would that message be or that story or
Um okay. This might be kind of long, but
oh,
I've struggled with a lot of mental health issues, like depression and social anxiety, depersonalization throughout my life. Um and I was in some pretty dark spots at times, and the thing that's helped me most in life, like overall, has been this one metaphor that I'll use. So we're gonna imagine that everybody on the planet Earth has a butterfly net. And we spend our lives running around with these butterfly nets. Now, most of us have stuck our hands in the holes in our nets and spread them wide open, so you've got these gaping gashes in your butterfly nets, and you're swinging aimlessly trying to catch something, and everything's falling right through your nets because you're expecting too much. um but like it wasn't until I sewed the holes back up in my net, kept them small, and went through my life appreciating every single little thing. Like I remember a really specific memory of me like in a total like dark spot. Like I don't know, I was having like a total breakdown. Like I I wanted to like end everything. Like I was like super dark spot. And I was sitting there and I was crying my eyes out on my floor in my old room, and I looked up and I saw my door, and I saw the door handle, and I was like, who invented the door handle? And it was like a really weird thought that came into my head. But I was sitting there and I looked it up, and I'm pretty sure I'm not sure now, but I think his name was Alexander. But this guy into the door handle, and then I was thinking, oh, if we didn't have door handles, like would we have like curtain doors like everywhere? I don't know. And I fell down this like, I don't know, just this thought hole coming from me appreciating such a simple thing in my life. And now I'm always like going around and being like, oh, I wonder how this was made. Like, I wonder who thought of this. Look how nice that leaf on that tree is. Just like taking in everything that you're surrounded by, because the world that we live in is so beautiful, and like nobody appreciates that enough. But I mean, yeah, so that one thing, that message I want to spread is like really appreciating where you are and who you are and who you're surrounded by, and taking the time to really think about where these things came from and how they were made, and it just makes you appreciate them so much, so much more, you know what I mean?
yeah. Wow. I love that. Have you seen the movie Soul?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like that.
Yeah, but literally, I don't know, nothing's helped me more whenever I'm sad, like just sitting there and being like, oh, like who invented locks, or like where did this come from? And then you end up looking these things up and finding really cool stories, and then you can, I don't know, I
That's
don't
such
know,
that's such a beautiful like image. Just like
right?
you're
Yeah,
loaded and it's just something as simple as a door handle.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's
I remember that
yeah,
like super vividly. And
really
that's where
sweet.
like, yeah, that's I guess my one
And also just like it's like a exposition on how random some things are, you know, like how it's
totally.
not like you don't always need to be you should be trying to learn big things, but you don't always need to be like, what's the meaning of life? Sometimes it's
Yeah,
just like,
that door
why is that
handle.
so cool? Like why do we have electricity, or like, why does this thing happen?
And then from there, maybe this is more like exponential, but like from there, like you never really take into account the effect that a door handle has in your life. But after that moment, I was thinking like, whoa, like what if we didn't have door handles? Like what if I couldn't lock my door? Blah, 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 blah. Like what if bathrooms didn't have locks? And then from there, like this like single dude invented that. And it has such a unrecognized, but also massive impact. So like, it makes you think like, what tiny thing, what's something that you do in your life, it may seem super small, but like you never know, like you're so capable of doing something that could like cause everlasting change, and then that just makes you feel like you have more purpose. So it's helped me a lot, because I'm like, what if I do something like that? I don't know, like something so simple, but just like, I don't know, makes the world a better place for everyone who's to come after, you know.
I love it. That's awesome. Thanks so much for tuning in to At the Base of the Baobab Tree. I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode and got some value out of it. I'm just going to play Crosshatch, which is a song that we discussed at length during the podcast. So feel free to listen to it and check out Izzy wherever you get your music.
Tearing chunks of flesh off my neck, eating me away, hoping that a fresh layer of dermis could fix a decade's worth of wasting away. Could you spare me a sip of some decency? Sea of alcohol in all these drinks. I don't think I want distraction. I beg for insurrection. A potent dose of empathy holds me close to your chest, darling. Coat me in exhales of breath, 10 seconds, then suck me into the warmth of your organs. I'm sick of this corpse. I'll be dancing in your lungs till I'm not welcome. So welcome. This is up to us. There's no God, it's all on me. Please keep in touch. There's no words to explain this. I can't wait to become you. In the meantime, spare me a secret on how.
So, I have this theory that we're all just a bunch of lines, and throughout our lives grow, spinning, sometimes intersecting and meeting with other lines, other times staying completely parallel throughout the entirety of our journey. But no matter what, as time progresses, so do we. We're constantly spinning, meeting new people, losing others. As time goes by, we take different turns and end up in different places. And throughout this whole process, we're creating this huge knot of life all over the planet. And I just think there's something really beautiful about that.